everyone, my name is Dr. Corrine Seeley and I'm a pediatric sleep specialist, sleep educator, and sleep consultant here at Rebirth Wellness Center and owner of Sleep by Dr. Seeley. And I have brought to you this special little workshop on debunking sleep tips. So I've put together a list of common things that I either heard when I was a new mom, advice that was thrown at me, things that I heard from medical doctors, or that I've had clients come to me and say, my doctor says this, is it true? Things that you hear, floating around. There's, kind of as a new parent and you're bombarded with sleep advice. One of the big things I noticed moving from academia, so prior to being a sleep consultant, I worked in sleep research. So as a researcher in sleep and brain development and a course instructor. And one of the biggest things I noticed when I came into the world of motherhood was how much advice there is floating around. Everywhere you look, there's books, blogs, experts telling you what you should be doing with your child. And most of what I found was either incorrect or not research-based. So there's no research behind what people are telling you. And even myself, when I looked at the sleep books out there was only a few of them that had research and actual research evidence in them. So one of the biggest things I noticed was just how much we're bombarded with advice from friends, family members, and even on the web, and unfortunately in books too. So my goal was to bring education to families, help them understand what is known and what isn't known so that they can feel empowered making their own choices. Because I find right now the focus in the sleep world is on telling you what you should be doing and not really empowering you to make a choice for yourself. So this video is really devoted to giving you a little bit of information and helping you battle some of those pieces of advice that are thrown at you so you can know what is actually known and what's just kind of advice that's common out there. So we're going to debunk some sleep myths. If you have something you've heard, feel free to email me and I will always respond. I love getting feedback from the listeners, and really the feedback I get is what drives me to make new sleep tips and to put information out there. So I love having that connection. So always feel free to email me if you have something that you are unsure about and you want more information on. And my newborn sleep workshop, which is a full-length workshop, covers sleep across the whole first year. So you can always sign up for that. And it's really based on giving parents education, tools, and information around the whole first year of sleep. So that's something you can check out as well. So let's debunk some sleep tips. So I'm just going to draw from the bowl and we will go through them together. So, myth number 1. Caffeine use by breastfed moms disrupts sleep. So, if you are breastfeeding and drinking caffeine, does that disrupt the sleep of your little one? Well, studies show that caffeine does get through breast milk, and your baby does get small quantities of it if you're intaking it. Most research shows that if your baby's under 6 months, that's most likely when a caffeine sensitivity might show up. So you want to be careful around up to the 6-month mark, watching them to see how they respond when you drink caffeine. For the most part, if you drink more than 3 or more cups a day, that's when you might have a really sensitive baby who might seem fussy and irritable. So you want to watch how much caffeine you're taking in. But I have had clients that even 1 cup a day, they see changes in their child. So that's something to always watch for, as if you are drinking caffeine and your child seems irritable, you can kind of try to draw those connections. But research-wise, I say 3 cups or more is what you want to be careful of. But like I said, through personal experience, I've seen it in lower doses with clients. And in general, caffeine use is something that I talk about in my workshop. And I'm a big advocate of letting yourself feel tired. As a new mom, and especially with a young child, feeling tired can be a really good thing. So I am an advocate for kind of helping you slow down a little bit and let your body feel that tiredness. And I talk more about that in my workshop as well. And caffeine sensitivity in babies shows up more likely if you didn't drink caffeine when you were pregnant. So if you don't have caffeine during pregnancy and then introduce it afterwards, your baby might be more likely to be sensitive. So that's just something to keep in mind, that if your baby's really fussy, irritable, it could possibly be through caffeine from you, and that's something that you might want to kind of watch for. And like I said, I am a big advocate of helping moms slow down, feel tired, and try to get rest during that first year. And I talk more about that in my workshop as well. But it is true. It's a fact. Caffeine can disrupt sleep in breastfed babies. Okay. So let's see. Next. Crying it out is the most effective way to get your baby to sleep through the night. I see this a lot, and this is the idea that you have to leave your baby in the room, leave the room, let them cry, fall asleep on their own, and that's the only way that you can get them to sleep longer stretches and get the sleep they need. Studies show that technique is effective in terms of they will start sleeping much longer stretches if you do it. So there's have been a few studies, but most research has shown that gradual techniques are equally as effective. So there's tons and tons of research papers comparing the two effects, and gradual techniques can be equally as effective. All of the techniques that I work on with my clients are gradual and gentle and really, unrealistic. You have to know what's realistic for your child as well, which is something I do cover in the workshop. Like, how much can you really expect them to sleep for their age and for their development? So you have to know that first, but at the same time, gradual techniques and easing them more slowly can be equally as effective. So don't feel pressured if you read or if someone tells you. I've heard this, a lot of clients of mine from medical doctors, their pediatrician has said you kind of have to just let them cry. That's not the only way. There's many, many more gradual techniques that you can use. And I kind of compare it to if you were to quit smoking, you go cold turkey versus weaning yourself off slowly. It's much more gentle and it's less of a shock for your child to learn how to sleep independently and in a gradual way. And of course, knowing what's realistic. Can you even expect your child to be able to sleep on their own as well? So you want to be realistic with them and use the most gradual, gentle techniques that you can. And there's many, many out there. So don't feel pressured to use cry it out. I think that's kind of an old school way of thinking, and we now know that that's not the only way. So there's many options. Don't feel that pressure, and you always feel free to reach out if you have questions about gentle techniques, but they can be effective. Okay, so that one is debunked. It's false. Okay, next. Formula feeding your baby will help them sleep through the night. Well, studies show, actually what's interesting, and I talk about in my workshop, is that breastfed babies actually sleep better than formula-fed babies as newborns in that newborn stage, because there's a lot of chemicals in breast milk that help promote sleep and relaxation and also help the development of their own sleep systems. So this is debunked. It's false. You don't have to use formula to have a great sleeping baby. And like I said, it's actually the opposite in the early months because breast milk actually helps promote their sleep development. Studies have shown that formula-fed babies when they're older, do sleep a little bit longer. But it's really kind of minimal in comparison to breastfed babies. So it's not a huge stretch. That would be like all night kind of thing. And many clients I've worked with have tried to switch over to formula thinking that it's going to help their child sleep when really nothing changes. Your child's ability to sleep all night is developmental. So are they developmentally there? And what does their sleep processes look like? Because that's a huge factor in how long they can sleep throughout the night. It's not just about kind of bulking their belly up. So are they developmentally there as well? And how are they able to kind of soothe themselves? That's something that's a big question. And many moms, like I said, switch to formula thinking that's the solution, and they regret it. Breastfed babies are perfectly capable of sleeping well and getting all their sleep needs met and sleeping longer stretches when they're, that coincide with their development. So don't feel the need and don't feel the pressure to switch over to formula just because it'll help your baby sleep. It's absolutely not necessary. And I'm saying this just to help avoid someone having regrets down the road. You don't have to have formula to have your baby sleeping well. And the difference, research-based, is very minimal. It's not as much as you would think. It's not a huge stretch of time. So don't feel that pressure, and you can have a great sleeping baby using breast milk alone. And it might even be better because it has very important chemicals, which I talk about in my workshop. So that one is mainly false. Don't worry about switching them over. Okay, next. Watching sleep patterns in the womb can help to predict your newborn's sleep. So this is the idea that your little one's activity inside the womb will actually predict what kind of sleeper they'll be like when they're born. And there's a lot of devices floating around out there that can track your baby's movement and tell you kind of what kind of sleeper they are based on movement in the womb. This is absolutely false. There is absolutely no correlation between their movement in the womb and how they're sleeping when they're born. And one thing I talk about in my workshop is what sleep looks like in the womb, and actually they move around while they're sleeping. So that activity doesn't really even correlate with when they're awake. They're quite active little sleepers. So that one's debunked. There is no link. Don't buy into products. Don't try to sleep train your baby in the womb. Everything is based on the environment that they come into. So there's no sense worrying that your baby's going to be a night owl or an early bird. There's no links found in the research that's been done. So don't buy into that myth and those products. Okay, next. Putting rice cereal in your child's bottle will help them sleep longer. This was something through personal experience. When I had my son, it was around 2 months. I had a family member say, you have to put rice cereal in their bottle, or you have to give them rice cereal to help them sleep. And being a new mom who was tired, very tired, I questioned it, and I thought, okay, maybe I have to, bulk them up and give them rice cereal. And luckily, my husband or partner said, oh, we know that's not true, Corinne. You know you're not supposed to feed solids before 6 months. And that kind of helped bring me back to, I know what's right for my son. And it's not to give him rice cereal before at 2 months old. It's not recommended to give solids until at least 6 months. And rice cereal really is empty calories for them. We know how good that breast milk is if you're breastfeeding for a baby. And if you were to start supplementing with rice and cereals, it's going to just be empty calories, and it'll disrupt your own milk production, and they're not going to get all those good hormones and things coming from your breast milk that do help with sleep. So don't think if you hear this, if someone tells you it's not recommended, and like I previously said, your baby's perfectly capable of sleeping nice long stretches with breast milk. So you don't have to start bulking them up with empty calories, and it could even, disrupt their digestion and make things worse. So don't feel the need to do that. Your milk is enough for them. Okay, moving on. Cutting corners on naps will help your infant sleep longer. This is something I see very often with clients of mine who really, really try to tire their child out so that they crash and hopefully sleep all night. And in general, this is not the best strategy to help your child sleep and to help their own sleep development. When your child gets tired, their body starts producing cortisol. There's a lot of stress hormones. It's really hard to get them to soothe. They're self-soothing, and any soothing ability they have is lost. And I talk about that in my workshop, just how self-soothing is affected by sleep being tired and how that whole kind of system develops. But when they're tired, they get really more fussy, more stress hormones, and it's harder for them to fall asleep. So one thing you don't want to do is try to push them further than they can handle, because it'll make it harder to fall asleep, and they actually wake up more frequently through the night when they're tired. So helping them to figure out what works best for them, how long can they comfortably stay awake without getting overtired. And I go over that in my workshop if you want more information on wake times and what I find works best for children. So yeah, you don't want to use the approach of just trying to exhaust them. They'll probably fight sleep more and sleep less when they do sleep. So we want to figure out when is the ideal time, when are they tired but not completely exhausted. And the better sleep they get during the day, the better their sleep actually is at night. Sleep is something that develops, and the better they sleep, the better they're going to sleep in the future. So helping them stay rested and getting those daytime naps is the best way to help with sleep at night. And that's probably one of the biggest things that I help with clients, is helping their day so their night gets better. The answer is often in the day, not in the night. So don't fall into that. Don't try to tire them out. The best thing you can do is put them down when they're not too tired and help them get sleep so their nighttime sleep's better. Okay, so that one is false. Debunked. Okay, next. Babies should be sleeping through the night by 6 months of age. This is something that you might hear, or you might have a friend who their baby's sleeping through the night and they're 6 months old, but it is false. And the false part is should be. Many babies might be, but it's definitely not a should scenario. And really, babies can get there at any time. There's a lot of factors that go into if they wake throughout the night. On average, most babies still feed once or twice a night at 6 months. So they do sleep longer stretches from the newborn age, but it still is quite normal to have 1 or 2 feeds. And night really refers to a 12-hour period. So that could be going to bed, say, at 7, waking at 7. So 1 or 2 feeds within that 12-hour period is quite normal. And a lot of research would suggest sleeping through the night as having a 7 or 8 hour stretch, which is our night. We sleep for 8 hours. And many babies do have a 7 or 8 hour stretch, but it's not really sleeping through the night that we would expect. So be careful of what you read, because through the night can mean different things to different people. And it might just mean a nice 7 or 8 hour stretch, which they could be doing at 6 months. But in general, within a 12-hour night, 1 or 2 feeds is still pretty common. And in my workshop, I talk more about when you can night feeds and when and what's normal for each age. So that'll give you an idea. And you don't have to feel pressured to have a baby sleeping 12 hours straight at 6 months, because most babies still feed once or twice. So that is false. They might not be, and through the night might mean something different to us than it does in research. So 1 or 2 feeds is still normal. Okay, what's next? Babies are ready to sleep through the night when they're double their birth weight. Well, I think you might know what I'm going to say with this. So this is something I heard from my own pediatrician, and I do hear it often with clients I'm working with, which is once they're double their birth weight, and even a lot of sleep consultants I've seen videos from and read say that once they're double their birth weight, so say they were born 7 pounds, once they're 14 pounds, they are capable of sleeping through the night. This is, in my opinion, false, only because sleep, again, is a developmental process, and many babies are born and have a large birth weight young and take longer developmentally to sleep. The opposite, many babies are born smaller and can sleep through the night at a very young age. And I don't really understand, and I tried to do the research and find out why this value exists and why sleep consultants and people are using it, and I can't find any research evidence to say that it's a weight thing. To me, it's all their own development around sleep. And sure, feeding has a part of it, and how much, how big their stomach is, how much calories they can take in. But I think, again, when you're thinking of through the night as a 12-hour stretch, many babies, when they're double their birth weight, still do have to feed once or twice a night. So I don't personally think it's a weight thing, and I can't find research-based evidence to say that it is. It's really developmental, and again, some babies, especially breastfed babies who are larger, might actually have to feed once or twice a night. So it's really a combination of factors that goes into understanding how long your infant can sleep. And it's not just strictly they're this weight, that means they can. There's much more that goes into it. So I would say that maybe some babies are ready to, but for the most part, I don't think it's a weight thing. So that one's false. All right, there is 4 left. Listen to experts. They know best. And this is just something I wanted to bring up because there are so many expert opinions floating around. Like I said, many books that I own that are kind of sleep training books are written by doctors and by experts in the field, but there's no research behind what they're saying, or at least they don't cite any research in their books. These experts also could be medical doctors, and it's interesting because clients I work with, they hear various things from medical doctors, and they just don't have training in sleep and brain development. So they don't have the time really to help you one-on-one with sleep advice. So advice can vary from like cry it out to, just kind of wait and they get there when they get there. So there's so much advice from medical doctors who are experts and on babies and health, but they don't have sleep training. So, be careful of what you're hearing. Even if someone is a doctor, they might not know, what's going on sleep-wise for your little one. Even the same with books that you read, if there's no references, and remember, and I'm not trying to say that it can't be helpful, because there's a lot of books that I think are very, very helpful, and I'm happy to have conversations with you around which books I love and which I don't really understand where they came from, but I think the books are really, really helpful. They can be, but you have to keep in mind that they did not use evidence. There's no research behind it. It's their own experiences and their own beliefs, and it doesn't mean it has to be yours. So one of the biggest things that I want to relay in messages to parents is to do what is right for you. Get advice, take advice, listen to it, but do what you think's best, because you are the expert on your baby. You spend every waking moment with them. You know everything about them. Like, you can predict way better than any expert, and you know what will work for them. Your baby is your greatest teacher. It's not going to be a book. It's not going to be me. It's not going to be a medical doctor. Take advice from people, but if it doesn't feel right for you, if you don't think it's right, then don't worry about it. So that's just something I like to keep in mind, or parents to keep in mind when they're navigating all of the opinions out there, is that they are, for the most part, opinions, and you have to take them with a grain of salt and use them if they feel right. If not, don't worry about it. And that goes the same even from opinions from friends, family. Everybody has their own strategies that worked for their child, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for yours. So there's no one size fits all, and take things written with a grain of salt and try to be in tune with your child, because they will tell you what's working and what's not. So this one is, I would say, listen, but you know best. So it's pretty false. Okay, 3 more. Oh, SIDS is unpreventable. Some babies just catch it. So this is the idea that SIDS is something that can be caught and transferred, and is something that can spread. Some babies just kind of catch it. And there is a lot of research done to suggest how you can help prevent SIDS. So it's not something that just can kind of happen. There's many different environmental factors that can go into it, and a lot of things that you can do to help prevent it as a parent. And in my workshop, I talk all about helping to prevent it and what's known in research and what the guidelines currently are. So it's not something that's unpreventable and you just kind of catch it. It is something that you can take precaution in and really help protect your child against. So make sure, if it's not through me, educate yourself you can go online and educate yourself on what the current recommendations for safe sleeping are. Okay, 2 more. Rocking your baby will make them dependent. Don't rock your baby when they wake up through the night. This one I just actually added in because I had this question yesterday. A mom said, I heard that if they wake up in the night, you shouldn't pick them up and rock them, and that's really bad. And I get this question so much from moms, and I get a lot of emails. Even friends of mine, a friend I was just recently talking to said, I know I'm feeding them, rocking them to sleep. I know it's bad and I shouldn't be doing it. And there's a lot of guilt that comes, and this is one thing I really noticed when I started becoming, when I was a mom and started being around other moms, was how much guilt moms felt about doing something that was working, that they enjoyed, but they'd read you're not supposed to do it. And this is probably one of the most common things is, I shouldn't be rocking them. I know it's bad. Or, and there's this idea that as right from birth, your child should be able to sleep like an adult, going to sleep on their own, no rocking, no support, no help. And you have to encourage that right from the beginning. And I personally am a huge advocate for helping your child adjust to the world. And in my workshop, I go in more depth about that, but I really believe that, and really, if you look at their ability to soothe themselves, it takes time to develop. And I think one of the best things about being a mom is being able to be that person who can help calm them in the world. They need help when they're, come from the womb to the world. They need that extra support. And many clients I've had can be rocked to sleep just fine. That's not the issue in what's going on. It's something else. Other clients at the same time, we have helped them become more independent sleepers. And it's always kind of based on if the time is right for them and if things aren't working. But for the most part, many babies can be helped, comforted, absolutely no problem. And if it is a problem, it won't show up, in the early newborn stage. Maybe down the road, they might outgrow rocking eventually. No one's going to be rocked forever. At some point, you're going to move on from that. But if they need help, if they need support, I am a huge advocate for helping give them that support. And if you can help them sleep, their own sleep develops more. So there's more development when they get to sleep. So to me, doing what works, if it works and you're happy, I wouldn't worry about trying to not rock or not comfort or not use a soother or any of those comfort mechanisms because you're afraid of making them dependent on it. I think there's always a time and place for helping them move towards independence. And if it's working, then do it. I always say don't change anything if it's working. So this will be something that you'll get to know your own child, what works and what doesn't work. And if rocking is what's works, then do it. And I never would ever take that away from a mom, because to me, comforting my child was the best thing about being a mom. I want to be there to comfort him and to help him adjust to the world. So I never want to relay the message that you can't do that and take that away from someone. And, if when you have a young child, you don't want to spend your time fighting against something that works. So I don't know if this answer is true or false, but it's not the approach that I take. And it might depend on what sleep consultant you talk with, because I know we all have different ways of doing things. Not, just like everyone else has their own opinions, so do sleep consultants. So we each have our own way of helping children. So it might depend on who you ask as well. There's no really research evidence to suggest that rocking is bad. So this is kind of something you have to figure out what works for you and do it. Okay, last one. Smoking cigarettes can disrupt your baby's sleep. So this is the idea that smoking during pregnancy can disrupt your baby's sleep. Nicotine does get through breast milk, so this one's true. And it usually peaks around 30 to 60 minutes after you would smoke. So if you do smoke, you would want to be careful breastfeeding after, because nicotine is a stimulant, so it could potentially influence your little one's sleep. And also, smoking during pregnancy increases the risk of SIDS as well. It's one of the highest predictors of SIDS. So that's something you might want to consider if you are smoking during pregnancy. The risk factor involved in potentially trying to cut down or cut it out. And there's lots of resources to help you do that. So so it's true. It can disrupt sleep. So you want to be careful and avoid smoking as much as possible to help reduce that risk of SIDS. So I hope you have enjoyed these sleep tips and they've answered maybe some questions that you had or ones that you might hear in the future. I love hearing from people watching my video, and I love to get more questions. If there's something you've heard, read, you're not sure about, or just doesn't kind of feel right for you, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to answer questions, and I love getting those questions so I can create more content for families. So don't hesitate to reach out. Also, if you want more tips on sleep, you can take my newborn sleep workshop. So it covers sleep in the whole first year. I highlight, starting from in the womb to the end of the year, all of the changes that happen. And there's many changes in that first year developmentally, and tips for helping you guide those changes in a way that's natural, gentle, and feels right for you. So it's really meant to give you a toolbox of information to draw from, and it's not meant to tell you what to do. It's not meant to sleep train. It's really meant to give you information, so empower you to be able to feel confident with sleep so that you can do what feels right for you and forget all the things you might be reading and hearing. You know, there's a lot of noise and clutter around sleep. So we want to give you real research-based tips and help you feel empowered. That's my biggest goal. One of the biggest things I've noticed working with clients is that there's no one size fits all. So there's no step-by-step, which I think a lot of books you read are very kind of maybe step-by-step, and that's not how I approach sleep. So I want you to be able to create your own steps and to have that background. So you can always check out my newborn sleep video as well to give you some extra tools and tips. So I hope this helps, and you can build a wonderful sleep journey and story for your little one and for you. So thanks for tuning in, and happy sleeping.